The 1970s, 1,000 rands was the salary of a female white professional. Now that is just two pairs of good shoes, or four pairs of alright shoes, or six pairs of shit shoes, or 200 pairs of these shoes. Imagine if Steve Biko or John D. Rockerfeller had had the internet. I have no statistics to back this claim up, only my own observations. You're a thing. So you can stop listening here if that is not good enough for you. But for you who's still listening, then here's an insight. The world's first person recorded to be, not to actually be, a dollar billionaire was John D. Rockefeller in 1916. But he made his first million in 1859. It took 57 years to go from 1 million to 1 billion for John Rockefeller, who had already been in various businesses since a young age. But in order to get to his first million, it took a lot of machinery, employees, and money. So luckily, he climbed onto a rising industry early, so he was able to get everything he invested back within a year, plus enough profit to make him a millionaire. I don't mean to rhyme, but I'll do it all the time. So, for the last few decades, it's been widely believed that if you wanted to make $1 million starting from scratch, as in, you'd first have to pick a business model, then fail a few times until you find something that pops and learn things along the way, it would take you roughly 12 to 20 years of hard work. That's not true anymore. That is not true anymore. In fact, I'd say that's the new standard to become a billionaire, not a millionaire. Every 5 to 10 years, the standard for how much hard work it takes to reach a certain level of wealth via business decreases. You could also say that every year, the same standard of hard work unlocks higher levels of wealth via business. I thought this was an original idea until I found out that there's a dude named Ray Kurzweil who's already talked about this pattern. He calls it the law of accelerating returns. So the more we discover about the world, the universe, and ourselves, the more the economy expands. Just think about it. There was no $1 trillion country before the first billionaire, and now $1 trillion is just 3 to 5 dudes who grew up as computer nerds. We're not even mentioning the people who are so rich that they pay hundreds of millions per year to stay out of newspapers and magazines. They don't even want to be mentioned on the official richest people list. I'm telling you, like the official list is just people who have an incentive to be famous because their businesses rely on some kind of personal brand, or they want to be famous for some other reason. But they're not actually the true richest people. They are just the ones who don't pay to stay out of the newspapers. So as the economy expands, the level of wealth that once seemed aspirational and maybe even out of reach for most people starts seeming more and more achievable, and probably even small relative to the overall size of the economy. Okay, here's another example. In the 1970s, 1,000 rands was the salary of a female white professional. Now that is just two pairs of good shoes, or four pairs of alright shoes, or six pairs of shit shoes, or 200 pairs of these shoes. That's less now. Now that 1,000 rands, which is what, about 40 or 50 years later, that same 1,000 rands is less than how much I waste each month on things I can't even recall. You know, those kinds of miscellaneous expenses where money is just leaking and you don't know where it went. Yeah, that's less than 1,000 rand for me as a broke boy in the economy that's 50 years later. That should just illustrate the effect of inflation to you, if nothing else does. So once you're hanging out with billionaires, not that I've hung out with billionaires. If I have, I wouldn't know. They didn't tell me. But once you're hanging out with billionaires as a millionaire, you start to feel poor. It's just like when billionaires hang out with centi-billionaires and centi-billionaires hang out with trillionaires, and when trillionaires hang out with billionaires. My point is, it won't take 10 to 15 years to become a millionaire in today's age, and then another 50 to make your first billion. Elon Musk went from his first million to his first B in 6 years. Slightly more if you count how long it took to ideate and build Zip2, his first company. But the point is, it wasn't 20 years. Like, if you even include the ideation phase of Zip2 and building, it still wasn't even 20 years for him to go from million to billion. So at that time, he had an advantage over most South Africans because he could access a computer and learn the skills that allowed him to build things worth billions and millions. But so do you now, mostly with just your phone. These South Africans with the advantage now are the ones with both knowledge and access. And if you have knowledge, access eventually solves itself. If you only have access, then you can solve the knowledge problem. So what do I mean by this? Like, if you know how to build an e-commerce brand, but you don't own a computer, you can leverage the knowledge you have of how to build an e-commerce brand and help someone who wants to build an e-commerce brand who has a computer. If you only have a computer, but you don't know what to do with it, then now you have the opportunity to learn whatever the fuck you want and how to monetize it. That's another great thing about this creator economy and just generally making money on the internet, is that you can potentially monetize anything to an extreme degree. As long as you can build an audience around it, you can eventually learn to sell anything. And you just need to learn the additional skills. But even if you have both knowledge and access, you might be lacking something more fundamental. Drive, desire, a chip on your shoulder to do something truly meaningful. And that I don't know how to help you with, except just to say, suffer and survive it. Maybe I sound like I'm oversimplifying it, but as Warren Buffett says, it's not about how hard you row. It's more important which boat you're in. If you're in a paddle boat with holes in it, regardless of how hard you row, you will eventually sink. But if you're in a speedboat, you just have to twist your wrist a little to go forward 100 paces. So just add leverage to the thing that you're already doing. If you're already so good at it, then just show it to more people. And that is the best way to add leverage to anything. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching this far. If you got any value out of this, subscribe so you don't miss out on any more. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.